Hey, welcome to Unapologetic. I'm Will Posnan. I'm joined by my co-host, Las Vegas Aces center Kiah Stokes.
Hello, hello.
I'm going to start by telling Kiah what happened to me yesterday. Nothing to do with basketball, but this is crazy. And it's kind of funny. So hopefully people enjoy this. So I'm in northern New Jersey, right outside of New York City. That's where I live. And we are having our elections right now. Like, I think Tuesday is the big election. So the mayor of our city was supposed to come speak at our apartment building, and everybody in the building was like excited about it. They were ready to give him their questions, talk about what needs to be done for our community. And as he was en route, the building behind us fell over. It's just an old building. Weather was a little bit rainy. The building behind us falls over, and he just reroutes his limo and sends a deputy to come speak on his behalf. Like, he sends somebody from his staff, like, hey, you take these angry people who just had the building behind them fall over, like a debris cloud still over our building, literally 30 minutes before he was supposed to get there. And she gets there and she wants to just hold the conference like as it was, like, this is why you should vote for this guy. And everybody's like, can you call somebody about the debris cloud hovering above our building? Like, the fire department's, you're here. The fire department still hasn't taken our call, let alone been like, oh, we'll be on our way. Like, the fire department hasn't picked up the phone on us. Maybe get on this.
Oh my God.
I know. Pretty crazy.
That's
story.
awful.
Nothing to do with basketball.
Everyone was okay, though?
Yeah. If the tone of the story would be so different if there was an injury involved. Everyone's fine. Hence the comedic value of the story.
But still.
Dude, it's crazy.
That's awful.
This whole, I feel like that's a little bit of a microcosm for this whole election season in America right now. People are like, wait, so we're going to have and we'll get to that quickly later in the podcast. We're going to talk about some basketball now, but yeah, crazy times.
Man, that sounds awful. I'd be freaking out. Not even going to lie.
Yeah, they thought it was an earthquake. Like, people were like, oh, we thought it was an earthquake, but it was just, then we realized it was just us. Like, there was no earthquake down the street. It was just this one block radius of earthquake, and then the building. And it was just, it was an old building that I think there's a lesson there about, hey, if you don't fix stuff up, if you don't deal with stuff proactively, it'll crumble.
That sounds about right.
So let's talk about the East. The big story, I think the biggest story in the East right now is Joel Embiid sits out the first two games of the series with the Heat. They look way worse than the Heat. Then he plays last night, and they look a good deal better than the Heat. So what do you make of that?
Well, obviously he's a great player, and he's definitely needed for their team. But I think the Heat are still going to win. I don't think the Sixers got enough to win this series.
Interesting. So there's like two schools of thought. I think the first one is like, oh, this is how impactful Embiid is. The Sixers got this in the bag. And then the other one is Embiid rested. He was off for 2 games while everybody else was playing intense playoff basketball. He's not going to be able to just bring this energy. Like, it's just impossible to ask this much of him moving forward. And the Heat are going to bounce back, and people feel like they had an off night.
I mean, yeah, I would say it was more of an off night, and they just played 2 games without him. So I would give them 1 game for adjustments now that he's back in the rotation, and I think that they'll be fine. I mean, they're a great team. They play a lot of great team basketball. So yeah, they had their little warm up game with Embiid back in the lineup, and now they'll get it together. And I think maybe it'll go to 6 games, but I don't know. I can see the Heat just winning the next 2.
I'm kind of leaning the other way. So on the adjustment side, I mean, the Heat probably have the best coach in basketball, and I could totally see the adjustments happening. But on the Sixers side, just their defense with Embiid to without Embiid, it's the best argument for coaching not mattering in basketball. You're just like, okay, so they got scheme, blah, 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 but literally their defense is just not effective without Embiid and is maybe the best in the NBA with him. And it's really just him standing there. Like they were showing the highlight reel of the missed shots by Heat players, and they're all just shooting. Like anytime they're near the rim, they're just shooting. Like their face is like, this is an unnatural. Exactly. Yeah. What's that feel like to go like shooting against an elite defensive center versus just a normal center? How does that feel?
I mean, it's tough. I think it's funny because in college, our assistant or associate head coach, CD, whenever we played Baylor, and at the time, Brittany Griner was playing for Baylor, so she would literally come out as we're just doing like mic and drill or just any post stuff. She would take a broom and hold it up. And at first, you're just like, what is this? Like, well, this is not going to help us. But she just trying to emphasize, like, she's taller than you think, and her arms are a lot longer than you think. So you got to try to either, go around her or try to shoot up over her, which is pretty tough. But yeah, we had to work on that. So it is kind of a mind game because even if Embiid doesn't come over to block the shot, he's definitely altering it because they think, oh, he's coming, he might block it. So. I mean, it happens to me. I'm a defender and shot blocker as well. So I kind of see people, taking more floaters or stopping early or just kind of hoping to get fouled and then they don't call it. So it's a little work.
Do you practice like when you're doing offensive drills? Do you go, this is practice for when I'm going against a mediocre defensive center. And then now let's practice when somebody like BG is guarding me, like now let's practice shooting unnaturally, shooting over high arcing. Like you see point guards now, they all have the floater with the unrealistically high arc for when they're going against the elite defensive center. But sometimes like with watching Bam Adebayo, he's shooting it and he's like, this is how I've trained to shoot it. And I know that the way I shoot, Embiid is going to block this or alter this.
Yeah, I mean, you do have to work on it, but a lot of it has just dealing with touch around the rim. So as you're working on, the super high floaters or different, step throughs and finishes, it's just a way to get more touch on the ball. And that way, when you happen to go against someone who's taller, you maybe have to shoot it higher. It's still more natural. It's not like, okay, I'm going in there. I got to make sure that when I get there, I got to lay it high off the glass. It's more like you become more natural as you practice it more. So that it's kind of more instinct. I mean, I'm saying this like I do this all the time, which I don't, but ideally that would be the case. It kind of you just get more comfortable with different situations because even if someone's a mediocre defender, if they're still tall, you still kind of have to, alter your shot or trying to find a way to go around them, maybe more footwork, more pivots, or trying to finish on the other side of the rim so that they can't block it. It's just different things. I think it's all a part of the game.
Do you ever have a coach like a coach or an assistant coach? Do they ever give you the thing of, hey, this person's a shot blocker, pump fake, and then go up? Because I could see, sometimes you see people on the internet, they're like, just try to get Embiid off the ground. And it's like, well, in your scenario, you have Embiid landing on you. Like, yeah, you go to the line for 2 shots, but you're also going to the hospital before that. Like, what's the human element of that? Of like, I'm not going to pump fake and have this giant land on me.
I mean, sometimes you just got to deal with it. I mean, for the most part, every now and then you'll get a good pump fake where they end up jumping over you and like landing on you. And, of course you don't want that to happen. But if you're a good defender, yeah, you might jump, but you're really not going to jump and like fall on them. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, you'll jump. And then if you're kind of coming down and they jump into you, okay, it's a foul. But like, how many times is it someone just pump faking and then the guy just jumps and like lands on her back? Like maybe 5 times a season, I feel like. So it's not that big of a thing. I think you just kind of get ready for the contact. I mean, they're all grown men playing in the NBA. Like,
they're all grown men, but the Heat are one of the toughest teams in the NBA, and you see people visibly scared of Joel Embiid on the close-up. Like, when they're driving in, even somebody like Jimmy Butler, who's fearless, it's like he doesn't want even a left arm to come down on his shoulder. Like, that's like a baseball bat.
I mean, yeah, of course you don't want it. I mean, it's just a risk you take when you're driving into the paint and going against some trees. I mean, this is a risk. So if you don't want to deal with that, just stay on the perimeter. But if you want to take the chance, you got to be a little crafty, get ready to get hit. Maybe ever want to say expect to be fouled, because I hate when people just go in and throw their body and try to get a foul. I absolutely hate it. But I mean, if you're going in there, you got to be just ready for some contact and just try to finish it, the best that you can. It is hard. Embiid is very good altering shots, blocking shots. He's a big guy. So, yeah, good luck.
The other series might be even more physical. It's crazy. The East right now, especially at the top, it's like the hyper physical teams, and the West is all hyper finesse and teams that are just methodical about creating open shots and stuff. But so let's move to the Bucks and the Celtics. What are your thoughts so far on that series?
It's 1-1, right?
Yep.
I don't know. I still think my Bucks they're gonna pull it together. Still dealing with kind of injuries is a big thing for them, but I don't know. Maybe I just don't want the Celtics to win.
I don't either.
I don't know why. I mean, I do know, but I just feel like they're still trying to pull it together. Like I said, dealing with the injuries, it's kind of tough, and I don't know. Hopefully they can pull it together.
I think there's just a human thing of, we all know Giannis's story, and the Celtics, even though they have these cool stories on the team, they're still billed as the Celtics, like the classic Celtics. And there's also just a thing of like, I mean, and we'll actually get to this after we stop talking about the East, but it feels like America is going through all the same problems of 30 years ago. And it's just like, okay, we don't want to see the Celtics right now. It's almost like the Celtics are co-branded with the Supreme Court. Like, they're too much of an American staple, where it's just like, let's get them out of here. Like, can we get an expansion team? Can we get like a Vegas team? Can we just change the Celtics brand for right now, or even just change the mascot? Like the way that the Washington football team is now the Washington Commanders. Can we call the Celtics like, I don't know, the Boston College Kids or something? Like, just something with a different vibe. So that, like, I don't want to think about Havlicek and Kuzi right now as America's going through this,
Yeah, I'd never thought of it like that, but I kind of get it. I do kind of get it. Well,
they're too classic. It's like, it's weird. It's not the player's fault, and it's not the coach's fault. It's really the logo.
Right.
The logo looks like... So
you want them to lose because you don't like the logo?
Dude, I guarantee you, if you talk to that logo, within the first 10 minutes of the conversation, he's like, in my day, gum only cost a nickel. And you're like, ugh. There's nobody I want to talk to who's telling me that about chewing gum in the first opening of the conversation.
So do you think the Celtics have a chance to win the series, or do you think the Bucks are going to hold it down?
So here's why. It's really like the Michael Jordan thing of, when your shooting guard dominates their matchup on both sides, and that's the other wrinkle too, where it's like the Bucks don't have Chris Middleton, and so watching Tatum dominate that matchup is just a little bit less interesting than it would be if he was dominating defensively on Middleton. But yeah, I mean, it's the Dwayne Wade thing too. Like I said, Michael Jordan, but Dwayne Wade, same thing, especially before LeBron got there. That's how the Heat would win. Dwayne Wade would score 35, and the other shooting guard would score 11 on terrible shooting. And when your shooting guard dominates their matchup, I think it's the most effective of anybody at a various position dominating their matchup.
I mean, I don't necessarily agree. I feel like anytime you have a dominant player who's going to be, like, I don't think it matters what position.
Well, you just picked the Heat, and Embiid is going to dominate that matchup for the rest of the series.
Well, okay. That's good.
I mean, look, the MVP, it's funny because, like, right now the MVPs are all bigs for the NBA. Like, Giannis, Jokic, and Embiid are the top three of most people's MVPs. But if you look at the teams people are picking in the finals, it's the Warriors, Suns, Grizzlies, and the Bucks. But three of those teams are point guard led.
I mean, yeah, the point guard got the ball in their hand all the time, or most of the time. So if you don't have good guards, you can't have a great team. Like, you can have a dominant post player, but if they can't get the ball, then that's different. But I don't know. I don't know.
It is weird because all these teams, they have so many great players now. Like watching Sixers Heat, it's like Tyrese Maxey is a great player. Like he's above a good player. Like if Tobias Harris is like the line, like the Mason Dixon line between good and great, Tyrese Maxey's a little bit better than Tobias Harris. So I guess he's a great player. Drew Holiday is a great player. Like all these teams have a good big and a good guard, but it's just weird. Like when Booker dominates his matchup, or Luka or Tatum, those teams are impossible to beat, even no matter what happens at the other positions. I think it's because every team in the NBA counts on their shooting guard for so much scoring that if you hold your shooting guard, the other team's shooting guard to under 15, and you go off, that's a huge discrepancy. But it's like the Bucks aren't counting on Brook Lopez for a ton of scoring. The Suns can win if Aiden doesn't score, Draymond doesn't score, Steven Adams doesn't score. So it's kind of that discrepancy where it's like a big can dominate their matchup on one side of the ball. And that's maybe the other difference is the elite bigs. I mean, they dominate the other team's defense. Like Embiid guards the whole other team. And he does guard the opposing center. So maybe that's not the best example, but the shooting guard dominates their one-on-one matchup. And that's kind of like it's just a huge thing to overcome for the other team.
I mean, that's valid. When you put it like that, I could see how it works. But
like a point guard cannot score. Like Drew cannot score, and the Bucks can find points other places. They can hit threes, other things. But like when you're a shooting guard, I'm trying to think of a team left in the playoffs that cannot get points from their shooting guard. And I mean, the Grizzlies were the closest. They had Ja score. Ja scored 47 because Desmond Bane had a concussion, and they were still able to win. But that's the only team that's really won a game when their shooting guard had an off night scoring.
Yeah, I mean that's true. A lot of great teams have great guards. I mean that's not a secret, especially in the way the game is going today. So when you put it like that, I guess you would say if they dominate their matchup, then okay, whatever. You get a little point.
and all these teams have great centers too. Like of the teams that are left, I mean, Robert Williams is he has like the smallest resume of the centers that are left. And he's still, I mean, he's so important to that team. So it is kind of crazy. Like once you get to this level of playoffs, it's like every player on every team, some other team would trade a max level guy for them. Like, I mean, I'm trying to think of okay. So if you go to Orlando, like Orlando has Gary Harris near the mat, like at $22 million a year, and they would trade Gary Harris for every starter left in the playoffs.
Yeah. Why would they not?
Like Tyrese Maxey's making $3 million a year. They would do Gary Harris for Tyrese Maxey in a heartbeat. Same thing with like, I don't know who's so who are the starters for the Warriors? You got Steph, Clay, Jordan Poole's on the bench. Then they got Wiggins, and who's the fourth? And Draymond, but who's that fourth? Who's their starting power forward right now?
You would know more than me.
But like Otto Porter's coming off the bench for the Warriors. He's like their seventh or eighth guy. Gary Harris for Otto Porter is not that uneven. And it's like, that's just, you need so much depth at this level and so much star power. It's kind of crazy it's just crazy how talented the NBA is. I was thinking about when I was a kid, like Alonzo Mourning was like the third best center in the NBA. He was one of my favorite players. And if you go through the center position in the NBA right now, like Alonzo Mourning's like he'd be seventh or eighth today. And it's like that at almost every position. Like Allen Houston was one of the best shooting guards when I was a kid. Like Allen Houston's not as good as Bradley Beal. He's not as good as CJ McCollum. Like you got to go so far down at every position once you talk about like for the third or fourth best guy of back then.
I mean, yeah, that's just how the game is evolving. You know, careers are lasting longer, players are starting younger. I feel like that's expected. Like as the game continues to grow and players and technology and nutrition and everything gets better over the years, I feel like that's just natural. People are becoming better sooner, lasting longer. They're in the gym. You got like kindergartners doing all these crazy ball handling drills that we would never even think of. It's just that's a tale of our times. People just getting older without actually getting older. They're acting older, I should say.
No, but that's the crazy drills thing. You know how one big thing for old heads now is to be like, these kids, they're trying to shoot the deep three. They need to stop. And everybody's like, this is a bad shot. Just because Steph or Trae Young shoots it, it's a bad shot. But the part of the equation people don't factor in is in 6 or 7 years, there's going to be a kid who's better than Steph because they were doing all this. Like, Steph is the best shooter of all time right now. But right now, there's a middle schooler or a high schooler who's going to pass him. And it's going to be like 2 or 3. That's how these things go. And that's the best argument for LeBron over Michael Jordan that nobody says because it makes people uncomfortable to say is like, LeBron's just playing in a much more talented league than Michael Jordan did. Like, to me, the best player Michael Jordan ever played against in their prime was Hakeem. And after that was Scottie, who was his teammate. And I don't think that Scottie is as good as Kawhi. I don't think he's as good as KD. I mean, you could do the same thing we just did at center with Alonzo Mourning with Scottie. And it's like, Scottie was the 3rd best player in the NBA. And there might be 4 forwards better than him right now.
Yeah, it's actually really crazy. Like I said, it's just evolving game, people getting better. The only thing I don't like about kids doing all this crazy stuff when they're young is that if they're forgetting the fundamentals, then I'll be like, you doing all this for what? But if you're doing everything the right way and actually advancing, then I say all for it because I think that's how the game goes. The game grows. As long as they're not just – and now they're not just coming in the gym and just jacking up half-court shots for 30 minutes. Like, all right, I'm done for today. Like, at least do like some actual fundamental work. But that's a whole other conversation.
You got to work your way out to the logo. You can't start your practice taking 100 shots at the logo. But yeah, you should also – once you're at a certain level, it makes sense to learn how to shoot from the logo if you're a certain kind of player.
Absolutely. It's not what I do. I come in the gym and I work from half court in. So I'm shooting the logo and then I'll go in and work on mid range. And then I'll go in and work on post moves. That's what I do personally.
Well, if you're a certain kind of player, you should not be at the logo. There's a bunch of different positions on a basketball court and you got to play accordingly. But so I mentioned LeBron. Let's do a rapid fire real quick through some of the biggest stories just of news, and then we'll go to the West. But let's start with LeBron. There's a leaked story about, and there's also like personalities weighing in on the prospect of the Lakers trading LeBron. Do you want to weigh in on that, Kiah?
Wait, what? For real?
Yeah, there's
they want to trade him.
There's like Stephen A. Smith.
Whatever team. Oh, well.
Yeah.
Well, if he gets traded, I'm a fan of whatever team he goes to. So you know how that goes.
They're not going to trade him. It's the silliest thing, and
it would make no sense. They would. I don't know. He's not. Okay, he's not the best player in the league anymore, but he's still a great player. He attracts a lot of attention. Any team would want to have him just because money in general. Like, he's going to cost a lot, but he's going to bring in so much money. So I could see why teams would want him, but I don't think the Lakers would ever let him go. I think they would get rid of everyone else first and then him.
He's right there amongst the best players in the league. If he's not the best player, like, where would you put him? Like 5th or 4th? He's right there.
Top 5. Yeah, he's top 5 for sure. Like, he's still an amazing athlete, but like you said, the players are getting better. I don't know. I don't want to say he's old because he's still doing everything at 37 and he's in incredible shape. But at the end of the day, he's not the LeBron that we saw, 8 years ago, who was just a maniac. He still is really, really good, but I just don't think that I want to put him at like by far the best in the league. No, but he's still up there, but just not the best.
To me, the other thing about him is that he has this pull to be able to bring players in. Like you saw it with Ray Allen in Miami. Guys want to play with him, and guys are going to continue to want to play with him. Here's what I think that they're going to do. I want to be the first one to get this this theory out there. So when
Oh
it
my
happens in
gosh.
2 years, I'm going to look like genius. So this year, I think they're going to try to just bring a lot of young players. Like, you know how last year they went old with like Trevor Ariza and Melo? I think this year they're going to just have a bunch of young players and just try to, A, figure out young guys who can just be competent around LeBron, and B, try to grow the narrative of one of their young guys to be like, this guy's amazing, so that they can flip him for Dame Lillard. I think this year they're just trying to be a playoff team, but they want to take they tried to do this with Taylor Horton Tucker, and he just never put in the body of work where it could have happened. But they're going to try to find a diamond in the rough guy, flip him for Dame Lillard, and I think 2 years is going to be the LeBron last hurrah year where they try to compete for a championship. And I think that team will have, I think, by the way, I don't think Russ is going anywhere. I think their core moving forward is going to be Russ, Dame, AD, LeBron. Then Bronny's coming off the bench in some capacity on the team in 2 years from now. And I also think they bring back Kevin Love. I think Kevin Love, after his contract expires with Cleveland, he goes to the Lakers, and that's the squad. It's like, I don't know how good, I mean, how good that team will be will depend on how well those older guys stay at their peak level. But I think Space Jam 2 was like the foreshadowing of this. And also LeBron knows exactly what he wants, and it's kind of like the NBA needs LeBron so badly. Like, even if he's not the absolute face of the NBA, he's still one of the cash cows of the NBA. Jersey sold, eyeballs viewed, all that. Just like how when the NBA didn't let the Chris Paul to the Lakers trade happen, Kobe was like, well, you got to get me somebody. And the NBA was like, okay, here's Paul Gasol. Like, just like that vibe, LeBron's going to be like, okay, I'm going to need Dame. I'm going to need Kevin Love. NBA, make it happen, or I'll just retire. And they'll be like, okay, here's your squad. Now go compete against a Memphis team that could all be your children.
Well, I will say, wow, you definitely put some thought into that. I'll be very surprised if that is true in 2 years. If I see this happening step by step, I'll be very impressed. But the one thing that really caught me off guard is Russ staying. You think they're keeping him?
So I think that the only scenario I could see them trading Russ is like if the Pacers are like, we want to bottom out and we'll trade Russ for either Brogdon or for Buddy Hield or something. But if you go through the teams in the league, there's not that many teams where Russ makes any sense. And the idea of Russ being on the Lakers in the first place was like, Russ is going to make sure that we get wins in the regular season so we can rest LeBron a little bit, because a core of Russ and AD is a playoff team. Like, if your two best players are Russ and AD, like, those are very complementary players and can actually, like, you can make the playoffs or at least be at the top of the play-in, and then LeBron can rest a little during the regular season. Because I also think LeBron's kind of like, it's kind of like with Tom Brady, where it's like, it's not even how many years they have left, it's how many games they have left. So like, LeBron's in such good shape that you're really just, you want to minimize games, so you minimize risk of injury. But if he's out there, he's going to be a top 10 player around the league. I mean, he's too big and too skilled. Even if he lost his speed completely, I mean, if he loses his speed completely, he's like Paul Pierce or Magic Johnson in Paul Pierce's body. Like, he's just too big and too skilled. And then he's not going to lose his speed too, because he's already, he was in the gym this morning. Like, he's in Los Angeles. We're recording at noon Eastern time, and LeBron put up a selfie. He was in the gym this morning.
No days off, you know?
He's just trying to get out of babysitting.
Probably no. I mean, that's his life. It's all he's known since he was, I don't even know when he started playing basketball. So, and it sucks, like, when you lose and you're not in the playoffs.
In utero? I think he's the first person to start playing basketball in the womb.
He probably was. He had a little ball in there dribbling around. But yeah, I'll be interested to see how that works. I hope that Russ stays, just because him and AD never really got a chance to play together. I mean, the whole Lakers team this year never really amounted to what they were supposed to be due to a lot of reasons, as we already discussed in previous episodes. But I'm hoping that he stays. I just don't know if it will happen. Like, one, I don't even know if he still wants to be there. I feel like he had a terrible time. So maybe he will try to force his way out if they're not willing to trade him.
He did. I mean, he had a terrible time for sure. But on the flip side of that, I mean, where is he going to have a more legacy enhancing time? Like, really just Cleveland is the only place. And what's Cleveland going to trade for him?
Yeah, it's a lot. I don't know. I feel like anyone would try to take a chance on him. They'll just chalk up last year to like, oh, you know.
No, but like if Cleveland trades something of value for him, then Cleveland has nothing. Like if Cleveland trades Darius Garland or Jared Allen, they're not going to trade Evan Mobley. So it's like if they trade either of those stars, is LeBron better off on a team with him, Darius Garland, and Evan Mobley and no Jared Allen? Like the Cleveland would have to give up so much talent to get LeBron that they would be a worse destination for the Lakers by the time he got there.
Yeah, that would be, yeah.
Also, it would hurt the Lakers brand to trade LeBron. Like, you can't cut bait on LeBron. It hurts. Like, the Clippers are not bad. If the Clippers are really good next year and the Lakers just traded LeBron, I mean, the last thing that the Lakers want is to be in like a Nets-Knicks situation where there's a real debate over who the cool team is.
Yeah. No. Yeah, well, LeBron's not going anywhere. I was talking about Russ.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
I could see them trading Russ for a Pacer. Even Miles Turner. Like, if they could get one of those three Pacers, I could see it. But other than that, I just don't think they'll get an offer that they'll like.
Yeah, probably not. So I don't know. We'll see. It'll be interesting free agency for sure. I mean, I think it always is every year. It's always like, oh, this free agency's been so crazy, but I feel like it's like that every year.
This one is going to be. I mean, this one will be the craziest one where nothing happens. Nothing's going to happen, but there's going to be so much yelling on the TV about, but what if? But yeah, nothing will happen. Yeah. Nets aren't going to trade Ben Simmons now that he had the surgery. Like initially, I kind of felt the same way, like that the Nets should look at trading Ben Simmons for either a group of Pacers or a group of players on the Magic, like, you know, Bamba and some other guys, like Bamba, Markelle Fultz. Like that was, I was like, oh, this makes sense. I know that KD's like a Markelle Fultz believer. But it's going to be the same thing. The Nets aren't going to trade anybody. The Lakers aren't going to trade anybody. And a whole bunch of old men are going to like spit on the camera while yelling about how something has to happen.
That sounds about right. A whole bunch of what ifs to think about and then not happen.
So another LA story. The crazy thing is this LeBron story is second biggest story in LA right now. The biggest story is that people are leaking that the Kardashian sex tape was planned. Do you want to weigh in on this? How does this affect anything for you? Knowing that like Santa Claus, this could be like a complete fabrication?
Oh, I am not surprised. This does not affect my life in any way, shape, or form at all. But I'm not surprised. I saw Ray J put out a little post saying that it was all orchestrated, everything was planned, we've been lied to, or like the world has been lied to, I mean, if it really was planned, it's a great business deal. It worked in the Kardashian Jenner little family. It worked out great for them.
Yeah.
If that was the case, that's amazing. Great, good for them. Really happy they could make something out of that. If he's lying, I just don't see the point. I don't even understand why it's even coming out now. Like, I don't think anyone really cares. Like, the Kardashians are rich. Ray J's rich. Everybody got money. It has nothing to do with anybody else in our everyday lives. Like, I don't know anyone who is going back and still watching that tape. I guess I never really asked people about it as well. But
that right now, that tape is accruing millions of views. But I'm sure. No, I mean, yes, I agree with you. It doesn't surprise me at all. I knew it was planned. The audio's too good. Of course, it was planned. the thing that was crazy to me was they said that it has currently made $100 million. I don't fully understand how they monetized it. Like, I understand how it launched Kim and Ray J to a lesser extent to like a higher level of fame. I don't know how it was monetized, but it's made $100 million for them. So it's probably made $500 million for everybody involved in it. The reason it got
be a lot.
The reason all the leaks happened now is because Kim went on her show and said that she was going to burn the person who was holding it over her head with it to the ground. Like, she brought it back up, and that person was Ray J's manager or ex-manager, was like involved in the business side of it too. So he's probably on a $200 million yacht somewhere if he's like the person who's a majority owner. Yeah, apparently it's as valuable as the Clippers, the Kardashian sex tape. But yeah, it's kind of not important, but to me, it's kind of like there should be a moment. Like when people caught Tiger Woods cheating, it's the same thing to me where it's like people need to understand that 99% of this stuff is scripted. It is a decision. It's not an accident. And just consume all of it like with that idea in mind. Like, a lot of this stuff is smoke and mirrors.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I believe it. Everything we see in the media, especially from, celebrities or big influencers, it's what they want us to see. Like, we'll never know the full story. It's all scripted. We're just pawns in a scheme, and we're just gonna eat it all up and just try to believe everything just because it makes it easier. But the Kardashians, I don't have any hatred for them. I don't have any love for them. They're just people.
Yeah.
So it really has nothing to do with me.
I look at them like they were the logical progression of an industry that is still moving forward. In terms of the reality TV industry, like, I mean, I don't know who started it. I guess like the Real World, MTV, that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. Celebrities coming out of that world was always going to be the logical progression, like Kardashians. Now you have like the Paul brothers and that stuff. They're the logical progression, and stuff like Mr. Beast. That's like reality TV done in ways that I never really fathomed, like money giveaways, that kind of thing. And I mean, I love hip hop, and hip hop stole a lot from reality TV culture, from WWE, which is like the predecessor of reality TV. So yeah, I'm same as you. I don't hate the Kardashians. I don't love them, but I do think it's interesting the way that they can affect culture in huge ways.
Oh man, it's kind of annoying, really, about how they're so. I don't want to say it's annoying how influential they are. I just find it kind of annoying that any one of the family, they breathe, and then it's like front page news. I'm like, okay. Like,
it is crazy. Like they do things that you used to have world-class credentials to do. Like, Michael Jordan owns sneakers. Like, if you want your feet to be high status, you have to put them in his shoe to be at the highest status. And Kim did the same thing with Skims, and Kendall did the same things with, I think, lip gloss or something, where it's like, they don't have, like, Michael Jordan had to be the greatest basketball player of all time, win 6 championships for him to own your feet. And Kendall owns your lips because she's related to the person who owns your midsection. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, like, I don't know. It is what it is. Like I said, they got all this money and I don't, so who am I to say anything?
No, they're doing a lot right, for sure. And then, there's some stuff they do that's like whatever, but that's true for basically anybody famous and known.
Right.
Okay, so speaking of us all being pawns in a scheme, we're gonna talk about this last story, and then we'll go to the West, because the last story, huge bummer. We alluded at it earlier. Supreme Court might overturn Roe versus Wade, and it's crazy because it might be like smoke and mirrors. It might be like a pump fake where they leaked that they're going to do it, and now there's people that are like they're doing it, but there's also people saying it might not happen. So let's talk about the damage first, if it happens, and then we'll talk about the damage of if it was just a pump fake. So, yeah, from your perspective, why is this so terrible?
This is awful. First of all, why are old white men sitting around in a room telling women what they can do, like with their own bodies? And I get it. If you want to be pro life, I feel like that's a bad way to phrase it because they're not really pro life. They're just pro birth. Because then after the baby's born,
Mm-hmm.
then what? They're not, if somebody, God forbid, was raped and gets pregnant or they just can't afford a kid, but then they are forced to have this child, then what? Like, is the government going to help them take care of it? Are these people that are saying, oh no, every life matters? Are they the ones adopting kids? Like, it makes no sense to me. And me and Satu actually were having this conversation the other night because she's super into activism and policies and all that stuff. So of course she gets all like start talking about it 10 miles in one direction. But like she was making really good points. It just doesn't make sense because somebody has a kid and then what? It's like, okay, yes, no abortion, and now you got a kid, and so now what? Like nobody's helping them. They're just putting them in a terrible situation. And then the other part that really makes me irritated is like, what if something is wrong with the pregnancy, or that if the mom's not going to survive, or the baby may or may not survive, but you have to make a choice. Like that's just, I just don't think there should be laws that have to deal with that. Like everyone can make their own decisions about what they want to do with their bodies. There's no law that will ever be passed that's going to make a man have to do something with his body. So why is it that way with women? Of course, men can't give birth, so like that part is different. But there's no law that would ever be passed that's going to make a man like, oh, you have to get a vasectomy, and then when you decide you're ready for kids, then you can have a reverse. But before that, you have to.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody's going to do that. Like it's stupid. I just don't get why people are so adamant about it. Like, just it's my body. Let me do what I want with my body.
I 100% agree with you. Everything you said. I think that, yeah, exactly what you said, where it's ridiculous to be pro-life for a fetus and then not care, not be invested in making sure that that born baby has a good childhood. So to me, if you're pro-life and you're anti-socialism, like your big thing is you hate socialism, then it's logically inconsistent. I can't respect that point of view because if you're truly pro-life, then you should be wanting to ramp up socialist programs for children in perpetuity. Like, let's make sure every kid gets this, this, and this. And that should be a growing thing where it's like, now that computers are commonplace, every kid should have a computer. Now that the world gets smaller, every kid should get the opportunity to travel internationally. Like, if you're not supporting radical socialist programs for impoverished kids, then I can't respect your pro-life stance at all.
At all.
The other side of it is, what if this is a pump fake? Meaning, what if, and before I go there, it's like, the reason why I think this is happening is because I think that politically, conservatives especially, but Americans in general, are so intent on winning politically that they leave other important stuff, like they put other important stuff aside. I mean, we had to have this conversation last election when it's like, Biden wasn't offering real solutions. He was just clearly better than Trump and also a win for the Democrats. And I think that Republicans are pursuing this to win, not because it would be good for us on a federal level. Because, and this is the other reason why I can't respect any of this stuff, is because I know for a fact that wealthy Republicans who want to get abortions for the women in their life are just going to fly them to the states where abortion stays legal. And this is only going to punish poor women who want abortions. No other group will be punished by this overturning at all. If this was going to affect all Americans, at least we could deal with that side of it, but it's only going to affect poor women. That's the only group that's going to be affected by this. But let's deal with if this is just a pump fake, because there's some people that are talking about this like, oh, this is just, both sides are just using this as a tool for voter turnout in the elections. And it's like, that's crazy. Like, if that's where the level where we're at, where people are going to lie about the potential of overturning this just to try to get their side to vote more. I mean, it's like the building falling down across the street from me. Like, this is bad.
Yeah, if that's what they got to do, I just I don't know. I don't know. It's just terrible. It makes me like sick to my stomach to even think about it. But I don't know. Maybe I'll end
Yeah.
up staying in Turkey forever. The way America's going, this is so bad. Like, I don't know. I hope it's a pump fake. I mean, I don't know the reason. Like, if it's really for voter turnout, that doesn't really make it better. But I hope it's a pump fake, and they was just like, oh, nah, never mind. We just gonna keep it where it's at.
I think that the only solution that I see for all of this mess is just way younger representation. Like, at least with the younger Republicans, they're either transparently reasonable or transparently crazy. Like, you got younger Republicans like the eye patch guy who are like, I do want to negotiate across the aisle. I serve my country. And then you got the guy in the wheelchair who, I don't know if you saw, but he just had like his own sex tape come out, produced by the same people as he had like a video of him naked. I don't know. It's crazy. But so you have the Trump guys who are like, yeah, I mean, it's really easy to tell who's who, because basically with the younger representation, it's like, do they support Trump? Do they not? And then with the younger Democrats, it's more like, do they have ideals? Like AOC clearly has ideals, or is it like Pete Buttigieg, where it's like they're nakedly careerist? It's really easy to tell. But with the older ones, it's like you got somebody like Lindsey Graham that was anti-Trump, pro-Trump. Like, and then even on the Democrat side, you got ones where it's like, it's just hard to tell what they stand for. Like with Elizabeth Warren, who people love, it's like, it's very tough to tell if she's a liberal or a centrist, all that. So I just hope people start voting for younger people, 40 and younger, because I just have a lot more faith in them. We saw what Gen X and what boomers did with Congress. They basically just went on Fox News and went on CNN and yelled at people who they go to work with and could just talk to behind the scenes.
Yeah, this is a mess. I agree, though. We need younger representation. Also, I don't know. The world is evolving. America as a country, it's evolving. It's constantly changing. So we should not think the same way we thought 80 years ago. So I don't think the same way my grandparents think. I'm sure that they don't think the same way that their grandparents thought. Like, we got to get with the times. Like, come on. We can't be living like we're in the 1800s still, which it's like half of America wants.
No, it's kind of like with Matt Damon in the crypto commercials. It's like, I don't want Matt Damon weighing in on crypto. I want Timothée Chalamet weighing in on crypto. Because if in 15 years crypto is a bust, Matt Damon's going to be like, who cares? I'm not famous anymore. Like, Matt Damon's going to be retired. He's going to be doing his own thing. I want Timothée Chalamet to have to be like giving his Oscar speech like, thank you for the Oscar. I'm sorry about crypto. It was terrible. I never should have supported it. I would rather Chris Brown was the face of crypto than.
Oh my God.
that's who I trust, because I know Chris Brown is never going to stop playing stadiums. So at least if he's the face of crypto, it's like, okay, if crypto's a bust, then his whole fan base isn't going to be able to fill up his stadium. So he needs to be right about crypto. Tom Brady's going to be like, is Tom Brady really going to be playing at 65 when we know if crypto is real or not?
I mean, at this point, he'll probably retire 4 times and come back 5. So at this point, why not?
He's going to like clone himself in the younger Tom. People counted out the younger Tom. It's like, clone Tom Brady went first overall in the NFL draft. You can't claim the chip on your shoulder thing, clone Tom Brady. We knew you'd be good.
Yeah. I don't know. I just.
Let's talk about the West.
Yeah, let's go to the West. I don't
What's your favorite series between the two? It's now the Mavs won last night. I thought that was going to be a sweep, so now I don't know what to think. I did too.
But I still think Phoenix is going to win. Mm-hmm. But I am interested to see how the rest of this Warrior and Memphis series goes.
That's crazy.
I'm excited.
People are sleeping on the impact Steven Adams brings to that team. Like, the dumbest thing I've heard is like, and the Warriors are out rebounding the Grizzlies this series. They figured it out. And it's like, no, the rebounder has COVID. One of the best rebounders, and not just the best rebound, but one of the best box out guys in the league. Like, when Russ was averaging 11 rebounds a game, 4 of them like Steven Adams would box out 4 guys and then kick the ball with his shin over to Russ.
Right. Yeah. It's gonna be good. I'm excited. I do think Golden State I think is gonna end up winning, but it is exciting, and it's kind of what I was talking about before. Like you have the experienced team that knows what to do and how to win versus a young team that's hungry and has a bunch of energy and is wild and is unpredictable. So I think it's fun.
Who do you think scores more points for the rest of the series, Steph or Ja?
Ja. For the rest of the series?
For the rest of the series.
So we
taking
take
out game 1.
Game?
Yeah.
I'm gonna still go with Ja. I like it. I mean, yeah, I'm gonna go with Ja.
Steph saves it though. Steph's kind of like playing chess when everyone else plays checkers, where it's like,
yeah,
Steph's like the guy who waits till date 3 to be like, oh, by the way, I'm charming. Like the first 2 days I was just watching you. Now, by the way, I'm charming. Like Steph will drop 50 in an elimination game after having just an okay series. So that's why I could feel like Ja could outscore him over these next 2 games, but then Steph just goes crazy in an elimination game.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't put it past him. So I think it just depends on how the series goes. But I also feel like the Warriors, I want to say it's more even scoring, but Steph doesn't necessarily have to score, 30 plus points a game. Of course he can, and it does help, but they have a lot of other options versus like the Grizzlies. I feel like Ja is trying to get 50 every game. Like I feel like that's his mentality. I got to get 50 for us to win. Like I feel like that's what he was going on in his mind. I don't know if that's the case or not, but I feel like that's how he plays. Like I said, they're unpredictable. They're young. They just go. And I feel like in his mind, he's like, yeah, I'm going to get a bucket. I am a bucket, which he is. So that, when I think of it like that, I feel like, yeah, maybe in the series, the rest of the series, he could outscore Steph, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the Grizzlies are going to win, because I do think the Warriors were going to take the series.
I think the Grizzlies are going to win. I think that when Steven Adams comes back, the rebounding is going to be just like during the regular season, the Grizzlies are going to have a huge rebounding advantage. Not like a small discrepancy, but like 10 plus more rebounds a game. And then I also think that Desmond Bane was way concussed for game 2, and it was crazy that they won that game. And I think that this is the part that is going to get me in trouble with the world, but I think that when Desmond Bane is fully healthy, the Grizzlies have a better backcourt than the Warriors. I think that they, like with Clay at this stage of his career, I think that when Desmond Bane is fully healthy, that the Grizzlies have the best backcourt in the league. And the Suns make me more nervous about that statement than the Warriors do.
Really? That's a bold statement. I mean, I can see where you're going when you're looking at Golden State and where they are now, but I don't know if I will give it to him just yet. And that's big. You said or when he's back healthy again, or like not concussed. But
I'm going to say starting backcourt too, though, because I think when you include Jordan Poole, I think that now we can talk about the Warriors having the best backcourt in the league. I still put the Grizzlies number 2 because I think their backups like Tyus Jones and D'Anthony Melton are elite. So including backups, I put Warriors 1, Grizzlies 2, Suns 3. But starters, to me, it's the Suns or the Grizzlies, and I'm going Grizzlies. Fully healthy starters, and that's because Chris Paul, went to the same preschool as Tom Brady. Like he's old as fuck, whatever. I would love for Chris Paul, if he does retire within the next 3 years, for him to run for something. Like I would trust Chris Paul over anybody in Congress, in government. That's who I want representing me, is Chris Paul. But for an NBA player, quite old. And the Grizzlies are just gonna, those 2 guys are going to be even better next year, which is crazy to say, in Bane and Ja, and even better the year after that. And I think they're already the best starting backcourt in basketball.
Yeah, I'm going to disagree. I would say right now, no. But when you're
who do you say, Golden State?
Yeah, in your defense, though, in a couple of years, I could definitely see that. But right now, I don't. Not yet.
So if the Grizzlies beat the Warriors in this series, then would you say
I
it's
might
the
take back
Grizzlies?
my words. I might take back my words.
I mean, it's like, for
But
me, I'm not a big Jalen Brunson believer to go to the other series, but if the Mavs beat the Suns, it means they have a better backcourt than the Suns, because that's where they're beating the Suns. And that's crazy. It's crazy with both these series. It's like strength on strength in every dynamic. Like the Warriors' third star is Draymond, and he's going against Jaren Jackson Jr., who literally, like, Draymond was one of his guys. Like, they're both Michigan State guys. Jaren Jackson Jr. was like, I can be Draymond with better shooting and better rim protection. Like, that was the goal. So it's all strength on strength with it out west. But yeah, so if the Grizzlies beat the Warriors, you would switch, you would flip flop, you join my team.
I wouldn't like dive all the way in, but I would. Be
would you splash if you were to dive all the way in? Would it make a splash?
No, it'd be. I would get a 10 out of 10 because it wouldn't make a splash. So I don't know. That would be tough, but I mean, time will tell. We got to see how the rest of this series goes. So if the Warriors win, are you still saying that the Grizzlies have the best backcourt, even if the Warriors win the series?
Yeah, I think I would just go, because to me, for the Warriors to win, Jordan Poole has to be by far the best bench player on either team. And when I watch Grizzlies Warriors, I think that the Grizzlies starting backcourt has outplayed the Warriors starting backcourt for most of it, especially if you factor in that Dylan Brooks was out and Desmond Bane was playing hurt. Like, so if we go healthy Desmond Bane on top of what Ja has been doing, like, if we're saying, I mean, Steph is the best player on the Warriors, I think that's still very true. I don't think anyone else is thinking there's another best player. So for Ja to be this much better than Steph in game 2 and then to be neck and neck in game 1, yeah, I think that the Warriors have been beating the Grizzlies at other places, but it hasn't been at that starting backcourt. And I think if they beat the Grizzlies, it'll be because they're, outdoing them with the coaching, with the adjustments, with their bench. And I think overall the Warriors probably have the best bench of basketball. And that's how I think they would beat the Grizzlies. But the Grizzlies have a top 5 bench. So it's like strength on strength. Yeah.
I mean, that's valid. That's good for you, though, to stick by your point and not jump sides like I be doing.
I said the Timberwolves. Remember, I said the Timberwolves would beat the Grizzlies. But I did say that I thought they were the second and third best teams in the West after the Suns.
Yeah, so. But at least you stick by what you say, whereas I'd be like, oh, yeah, well, yeah, sounds good. But if they lose, then I change my mind. So, I don't have a backbone.
Well, we both were like still picking the Lakers to make the playoffs when it was mathematically impossible. So we both will go down with the ship when our heart's tied to it.
Absolutely, and I feel like that's fine. It's not a big deal.
That should be the lesson for people listening. So if you love the podcast, then you understand we both will reserve the right to flip flop and also go down with the ship when it makes no sense.
Yep.
And if you want to weigh in, look, if you want to tell Kiah how you feel about that, you can message her at kstokes41 on Instagram. I'm at Will Posnan, and thanks for listening to another episode of Unapologetic.
Thanks, guys. Hey guys, thanks for watching. Click over here to check out the latest episode and click up here to subscribe.